Welcome back, America. We're going to continue our conversation about the extraordinary damage that liberal lawfare has done in the country and what can be done about it. Of course, we're in partnership tonight with our good friends at AMAC. Be sure to go to amac.us/no noise and go sign up. Become a member like I do. There is a significant amount of efforts underway to study and to devise solutions to all the things that we've been talking about on the show. Our next guest, he's at the forefront of it. He's the founder of the Article 3 Project. He's a former Senate Judiciary staffer. He knows the system inside and out. He's our good friend, Mike Davis, and he joins us now. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with a big picture, because when I came to town in the late 80s here in Washington, D.C., whether you're in the executive, judicial, or congressional branch, most people took their oath to the Constitution seriously, and they tried to keep politics out of places where politics didn't belong. But now we got lawyers that have no problem using the civil courts for whatever political purpose they want. We've got people in the Supreme Court leaking opinions, another one today. We've got prosecutors campaigning that if you make me prosecutor, I'll go after your political opponents. How did we get from that era in the 80s to this point now where no one feels any inhibition to not do lawfare?
I would say two words: Barack Obama. And today's Democrat Party, they're not liberals who love America and just disagree with conservatives on the best way to get there. These are leftists. These are Marxists. They hate free speech. They believe in censorship. They hate equality. They believe in equity, and they hate equal protection and due process. They believe in a politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement system. And we've seen that under President Biden's administration, Obama's third term, on steroids.
Yes, and we've heard a lot of rhetoric from high-ranking Democrat leaders really trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court. They've got this long-standing war on the Supreme Court, and it appears to be reaching alarming new heights, with mainstream media really calling them corrupt, illegitimate, and saying that it must be dissolved. What should our listeners understand about the left's attack and attempts to pack the Supreme Court with left-wing activists and partisan lackeys?
Look, the left has taken over every major institution in America. They've taken over higher education, K through 12, corporations, even the military. The last frontier, the last line of defense is the Supreme Court. And as we see from time to time, like today's social media ruling, that is a very weak last line of defense. And what the left is trying to do is they are trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court. The most consequential accomplishment of President Trump's first term was transforming the 5-4 left of center Supreme Court to the 5-4 Clarence Thomas Supreme Court. It's our last line of defense, protecting our God-given rights to speak, to associate, to worship, to protect ourselves. And once those rights go away, then once the Supreme Court goes away, those rights go away, the left is going to fully conquer this country. And so that's why the left is trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court so they can destroy it.
So it certainly is our last line of defense. And we see what's happening out there with so many rogue prosecutors who are refusing to prosecute entire categories of crime that the American people say we need to lock these bad people up, while forgetting the victims and the families who are really negatively impacted. How do we stop these rogue prosecutors from really acting unconstitutionally?
Well, I think it's important to give them a healthy dose of their own medicine. I call it the dead chicken strategy. When I clerked for Justice Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, each of the 4 law clerks for each of the 9 justices had lunch over the course of the term with the other justices. And Justice Clarence Thomas talks about growing up on the farm in Georgia. When dogs killed chickens, you wrapped those dead chickens around those dogs' necks. And as those dead chickens rotted around those dogs' necks, those dogs lost the taste for chicken. And we need to do the same thing to these Biden Democrats on their unprecedented republic-ending lawfare and election interference, whether it's Jack Smith and Jay Bratt and, Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco and Alvin Bragg and Tish James and Matthew Colangelo. There are so many Biden Democrat prosecutors and operatives who are engaged in this Republican-ending lawfare. And come January 20th, 2025, the first day of the Trump administration, Trump's acting attorney general should open a criminal probe on this obvious criminal conspiracy against President Trump. His top aides like Peter Navarro, who's in prison right now, Steve Bannon, who they're trying to send to prison, his attorneys like Jeff Clark and John Eastman, his supporters. On January 6th, parents outraged by gender chaos in schools and the resulting rapes in high school bathrooms. It's Christians, 75-year-old Christians praying outside of abortion clinics while the Biden regime gives amnesty to the much more deadly and destructive BLM and Antifa and Hamas and abortion industry activists who are terrorizing churches and crisis pregnancy centers and synagogues all over America. They're giving amnesty to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and James Biden. It seems like every scumbag Biden, except for the granddaughter who they won't acknowledge, has taken over $20 million from China, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, every trouble spot around the world. There must be accountability, severe legal, financial, and political consequences starting on January 20th, 2025.
Mike, I want to talk about something that doesn't get mentioned as part of lawfare, but it's becoming a very serious part of it. The effort by liberal-run law firms to get rid of any conservative partners, to bar them in some cases, and sideline people who might go to the defense of half of the country. It's hardly a couple of weeks that go by every time I don't hear another lawyer say, I got thrown out of my law firm because I represented a Trump client or something like that. How serious is it, and is there a way to fix this?
Yeah, it's very serious. You're seeing a lot of these conservative attorneys getting canceled. I have many friends and former colleagues who worked in the top jobs in the government, including clerking on the Supreme Court of the United States, who get ostracized by these law firms. And I would say this, how you fight back is you fight back against these law firm clients and say, guess what? Big company, big pharma, big tech, big oil, if your law firms do this to conservative lawyers, we're going to run boycotts against your companies until you make your law firms have attitude adjustments.
Yeah, important idea.
Yes. And now on X, you recently posted that if anyone in America must have the constitutional right to speak out against the judicial process, including judges, prosecutors, and witnesses, it is a criminal defendant going through the process. And you went on to say that Judge Juan Merchan is attempting to keep President Trump from calling out his egregious and bogus New York trial, all while his adult daughter, Loren Merchan, is fundraising millions of dollars from this case. How do they get away with this kind of lawfare? This is unconstitutional behavior.
Yeah, they're getting away with this because they're walking through an open door. And this is where House Republicans should have supported Andrew Clyde's appropriations rider to pause this obvious lawfare and election interference until after the presidential election. These Democrats waited 3 years and 3 of these cases and 7 years in this recent New York case to bring these bogus charges against President Trump. Gag orders are supposed to protect criminal defendants. They are a prior restraint on First Amendment rights. They have a limited time, place, and manner restriction. They are only supposed to protect criminal defendants because that criminal defendant's constitutional rights to a fair trial trumps someone's limited First Amendment rights during that trial. So you're supposed to put gag orders on witnesses like Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, for example, not on the criminal defendant who responds to Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, who are both fundraising off of trashing Trump. And if Trump responds, this judge, Juan Merchan, this corrupt partisan judge in New York, has threatened to jail Trump. If Donald Trump mentions the fact that Loren Merchan is raising millions of dollars off of her father's unprecedented trial of a former and likely future president, Trump goes to jail. This is corruption by Judge Juan Merchan, and there needs to be consequences.
We are living in extraordinary, amazing times in America, and there's been a lack of consequences for some of this. I think with you on the watch, Mike, we're going to have a lot more consequences. Of course, AMAC's creating consequences every day with its AMAC action arm out there working with legislators and others to make the country better. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with Bobby.